You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Hey, it's good to have you guys here for the Wednesday night show. It's the Wednesday night show in New York. It's October 1st. Oh, wow. Brought back the Quite Frankly pumpkin loop. The standby pumpkin loop. Oh, well, you know what that means. That just means that it's time for spooky season. Well, we'll have a little bit of spookiness tonight as we're going to be talking about predictive programming. And I don't know if I've had this conversation with Ryan Gable in particular, but I feel like we have lived around the topic in a great many ways. And he'll be with us in just a little bit. I asked him, I said, can you come on? I want to see if he can come on last night or the night before. But tonight is the night. And he's going to come on in a couple of minutes. Live from Japan. He's 11 hours ahead of us in the future. And yeah, so I got a couple of things to do. If you were watching Extra Innings last night, you got a little bit of a taste of what it was like to sit back and watch a high-intensity sports moment with me. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of rage. And, of course, some of you think that that's funny. And I guess if I'm on the outside looking in, I can see how that's funny as well, because just things are said. Sometimes I don't regret anything I said last night, though. I don't regret a damn thing. And yes, the Yankees lost. And tonight, if they lose, it's tied in the top of the fourth right now. If they lose tonight, then the season's over, and I'll see you in February, which is just whatever. But if they win tonight, you know who gets to pitch tomorrow? With everything on the line, who gets to earn his stripes? Cam Schlittler. That's right. And I always look at my friends. I ask them, do you think anybody in that stadium is thinking what I'm thinking when they hear Schlittler? If I ever hear a Heil Schlittler chant coming out of Yankee Stadium, I will be both embarrassed and hilariously amused. But I don't think they're ever going to go that far. But he paints the corners very well. Corners of the plate, that is. And so I call him the painter. And a number of other things. But of course, in the privacy of my own home and now with you. So we'll see what happens if the Yankees win tonight. I would love for them to win tonight just so that Schlittler can have a moment in the sun, even though it won't be a day game tomorrow. Maybe it will. I think it might be a 3 o'clock game if they get the Game 3 under. Who knows? You know what? Forget everything I just said. Very, very poor taste. But tonight we have Ryan Gable coming back on the show. And yes, that's what we have. And also we have this. We have every once in a while there are interstellar objects, intergalactic objects, things floating around. We don't know if they're giving off a signal, if they're being driven by some sort of intelligence, whether it's an alien or a demon. Well, here's one for you. We got this on who's NBC News. They want to know. First they're saying an asteroid might be heading toward the moon. That's right. The moon might be struck by an asteroid. There's a 4% chance it might get struck. And the question that is being asked on NBC is, should we nuke it? Yes, my question immediately is yes. Nuke it, please. Let's nuke the asteroid. Let's do it. Let's blow up the moon, too. Let's do it all. Let's just do it all. I think that there's so much ahead of us. If we just had the balls, there's so much ahead of us. And I think we should just go ahead and go for it. All right. What else do we have here? And yeah. Then we have this. YouTube to pay $24.5 million to settle a Trump lawsuit. Now, what I don't understand is this. First of all, YouTube agrees to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump after he was suspended by social media platforms following January 6th. They're still calling it an insurrection. This makes Alphabet-owned YouTube the last of three big tech social companies sued by Trump, which included Meta and then Twitter, now X. YouTube will pay $22 million to settle the claims made by Trump to the nonprofit Trump, the Trust for the National Mall, which is dedicated to restoring and preserving and elevating the National Mall to support the construction of the White House State Ballroom. The social media company will also pay, listen to this, $2.5 million to settle with other plaintiffs. Those plaintiffs, their names are down here. Their names, where the hell is it? Well, they took him out of there, but one of the names I saw in there was Austin Fletcher. That's Fleckus. Well, at least that's his name. Now, I would text Fleckus if I thought I was going to get a response, but well, I don't know what the hell's going on with that. So apparently, if it's really him, there's $2.5 million they just settled for. With what? I wonder what the claim was there. Because I don't remember Fleckus having anything taken down or whatever the hell it is. Or I would love to just get him on. This is an interesting story, especially if it is him and it hits so close to home. But the question for me, the bigger picture question for me now is, are there any precedents being set that will allow effective class action lawsuits to take or make some kind of impact on social media platforms, at least to the point where there are set terms that can be applied objectively and applied or appealed successfully? And then the other one is, what are the implications about publishing rights and editing and who has the right to do what and whatever? So the whole public utility question again as it pops up. So this was interesting to me because, again, what this is all about, this is about $22 million to settle the claims made by Trump to the nonprofit trust, where it is, let's see here, when they suspended his account, the platform said that Trump, his posts about the riot risked inciting further violence, which, of course, he didn't say anything. He told everybody to go home and to be peaceful and all that stuff. So at the time, the legal experts said that similar suits had been dismissed because tech companies have the right to run their platforms as they see fit. Yeah, but the whole question here is, it's really defamatory. There's a level there of, I don't know what you want to say about it. I mean, being able to deplatform somebody and having that kind of power, that can go hand in hand with your accusations. You know, I always say the media is like a reality making machine. They can accuse people of something. They can report on things that they are creating, actions that they are creating. This entire complex of industries between the government and all of their agencies and the media and NGOs and all that stuff, they really do band together to create panic, a story, need for response. The response is always censorious and everything else like that. So it's interesting. And I wonder what kind of precedent this would set for everyday people who have, we've heard about our friends getting involved in class action lawsuits for a while now. I remember when Sean came on the show just after that major purge in October of 2020. And there was a bunch of people that got on with that class action lawsuit that I guess went nowhere. I'm going to get in touch with them to see what the hell this is all about. And ever since this settlement over here, if there's going to be any revisiting of any of that. So just throwing it out. All right. What else do we have? Now, here is the big one for the night. The big one for the night. Should we do it right? Yeah, I guess so. It's the Snake Eyes one. And I know that Ryan Gable is going to be joining us any moment. And when he comes on, we'll just bring him in. But here it is, Charlie Kirk shooting Roe. Why the Nicolas Cage Snake Eyes movie is suddenly trending. This is on Hindustan Times. Several eerie similarities between Charlie Kirk's assassination and the 1998 movie Snake Eyes have been pointed to by eagle-eyed social media users. Kirk, the Turning Point USA founder, was shot on September 10th. The 1998 movie Snake Eyes was directed by Brian De Palma and starred Nicolas Cage as Rick Santoro, a corrupt cop who uncovers a conspiracy theory when the Secretary of Defense is killed during a boxing match. Now, they started matching similar things, similarities between what we just lived through and, of course, this movie. Some calling it coincidence, others saying it's predictive programming. Despite real similarities, these claims remain unverified. Now, the whole idea that you can plant things into the public square to kind of massage the possibility of one thing happening or another is easy. I mean, that's just very easy stuff. And we talk about predictive programming for years that led up to 2020 and what was introduced to us as COVID. I mean, since I remember covering stories back in 2012, 13, 14, Bill Gates and all the crew that were in the eye of the storm during the show, not the dress rehearsal, but the actual show in 2020. They were talking about disease X was coming and all this other stuff. So there's always been that idea that, hey, there's going to be something that puts us on our ass and it's going to call into question all the things that we hold dear, like, you know, the ability to walk out of the house. What kind of compromises have to be made, as opposed to the freedom we can enjoy when we aren't under a state of emergency, especially when it's a biological emergency. You know, you talk about Contagion movies, the monkey movies, all the movies where some. Is it predictive programming or is it just really how we tell stories? And there's nothing more compelling than disaster stories. And you can't always just be a tidal wave, an asteroid, although, I mean, there is that. Alien movies, alien invasion movies, all that stuff. You say predictive programming, is it getting people primed for this being a thing, or is it also desensitizing? Is it also a desensitizing event and a desensitizing tool so that if something related does happen, there would never be consensus, there would never be anything, there would never be a critical mass of people who would take it seriously, and therefore it would sow confusion and present opportunities to the puppet masters coming from another angle. You know, it's all very interesting. But this is different. We'll get into a little bit more of this right now, and then we'll talk deeper when Ryan shows up. The first similarities was thus in the name itself, given that Charlie Kirk's full name was Charles James Kirk. In the film Kirkland gets shot in the neck, and the videos of Charlie Kirk's assassination also appear to show the bullet hitting the side of his neck. So it's not only where the wound appears, it's also the name of the deceased. It's the fact that it happened on September 10th, and also it's in public. It's in public arenas. You know, one's a sporting event, and the other is the site of a debate on a college campus. But, you know, people have been going deeper and deeper into this, even to, you know, squad car numbers being number 47, because that has a link to the current administration's place in the line of presidencies and all that stuff. And then we had somebody get in touch with the show And they said, Frank, take a look at this. I just ran some of these probabilities through to Chat GPT. And it was the assumptions and naive calculations, multiply the probabilities, assume independence. So you're taking a couple of factors here. The first name being Charles, the surname being some kind of a substring of Kirk or Kirk-like, something that has that centerpiece there. And then you have the shooter. The shooter in the film and the real shooter's name, or at least the shooter that has been presented to us, his name, being Tyler. Both are public events with live audiences, and both involve sniper work, neck wounds, and then, of course, the numeric match of the date, September 10th. Now, the person who had sent all this stuff to me, they had plugged this into ChatGPT, and they wanted to see line by line all the probabilities for these things as individual factors. And, of course, when they are all put together, what is the probability that any of this could hit? Like if you're playing the lotto, what kind of a lotto odds would you be dealing with to have all of these things overlap between the 1998 movie and the 2025 events that we witnessed a few weeks ago? And when you multiply these 6 probabilities between the name, the surname, the shooter's name, the public arena, the sniper target, and of course the date, it all comes to around what was roundabout way 1 in 3.65 trillion. That's one hell of a lottery that you just won right there. But again, like I said, the real reason why I want to bring this up is whereas you can say, oh, well, there's been decades worth of predictive programming that has gotten a society primed for some kind of a contagion event and what would be appropriate response and all that stuff. You can prime people for an alien invasion. You can prime people for one kind of terrorist attack or another. And you can do it in different level, these kind of like more like subconscious levels, the things that are a little bit more overt and in your face. But this is interesting because it almost seems a little bit more retrocausal. And I want to talk to our good friend Ryan Gable tonight. He's showing up right now. And if you don't remember Ryan, he's a veteran radio personality and author, hosting The Secret Teachings, a thought-provoking podcast and radio show exploring topics like parapolitics, occult studies, and symbolism. Ryan is the author of several books. I own at least 2 of them, including Occult Arcana and The Technological Elixir, promoting critical thinking through in-depth analysis and expert discussions. He's on with us right now, live from Japan. How are you, Ryan Gable?
Hey, Frank, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me back on.
It's good to hear from you. I don't think your microphone is working. I hear you, but I think it's coming from your webcam.
Interesting. Let me look at the settings really fast here.
You got it.
Oh, that is very strange. I will adjust this back to my...
Good. Yes. That? Oh, yes. Robust and nice. It's good to have you on again.
Good. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to talk about I suppose you could say synchronicity, predictive programming. I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Just roll with it because I've got questions and I'll just throw. I set the table pretty nicely for you. I just want to hear your roundabout thoughts and we'll just get into follow-ups.
Yeah, I did a show on this earlier in the week. I called it Snake Eyes 9/10 is the new 9/11. And I talked a lot about predictive programming on that show. And I said that conspiracy, PSYOP, false flag, and predictive programming are all terms or phrases that I think have kind of lost their meanings today. I don't know if you've ever noticed this in the conspiracy world and what we see online, but almost everything that happens now is like a PSYOP. People use the term false flag for things that are not false flags. And I think predictive programming is very similar. We use that term for pretty much anything that happens that kind of resembles something else. And so first we have to have a definition of what predictive programming is. And I like what you said just a moment ago, that a lot of this might be retrocausal, or it seems like it's retrocausality. I actually said that on my show the other day. But the predictive programming angle, like what exactly is predictive programming? Do, say, governments or corporations or the military insert stuff into movies in order to make you comfortable with an idea, to get you comfortable with the introduction of a technology, something like that? Yeah, it probably doesn't happen all the time, but when I went to film school, one of our classes, we actually learned in class, it wasn't a conspiracy, that if you want a movie script approved and you want to use, say, a Black Hawk helicopter, or you need a shot of an aircraft carrier, say for one of the Transformers movies was the example they gave us. There's shots of aircraft carriers, real military stuff, not CG. They had to get the script approved by the Pentagon. And part of the deal is if the Pentagon wants to put something in the movie, then that's the exchange. You get the shot of the helicopter, the plane, whatever, and they insert a line or they insert an idea that promotes the military, of course, or whatever the case might be. And I don't know if you'd even call that predictive programming per se, but it's that idea. I'd say predictive programming is kind of like it's not really predictive per se. It's more like getting people used to an idea. It's not so malicious necessarily. But if you watch the TV show Black Mirror, I don't know if you recall the episode it was black and white. I think it was called Metalhead, where they have these little robotic dogs that chase people down and killed them. And that came out. And I remember it was a couple of months later, we heard more about those robotic dogs from Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
And I remember people emailing me all those years ago and saying, "Oh my God, this TV show predicted it." And then the X-Files had an episode on it. And I said, I don't think they really predicted it. I think that the people that made the show got the info and they were paying attention years before the show came up, that episode came out, like I was. I did shows on those robot Boston Dynamic dogs over a decade ago. And then they put it in a show. People don't know much about it. It's in the show, and then it becomes popular in the news or something, and then people think it's predictive programming when it's not. But it kind of also is, because they're using this as an idea, an image of what the future of warfare technology might look like. So the bottom line is this, Frank, like predictive programming is not that episode of Family Guy where Stewie is running through the mall and says, "I've escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement." I've heard people say that's predictive programming. No, Seth MacFarlane and the writers just knew that Kevin Spacey was up to some really bad stuff in Hollywood. It's the same thing with The Simpsons. It's not really predictive programming for you to take a character like Donald Trump, who has talked about running for president. It's been a joke in the past. He's also been serious about it in the past, going back to the 90s. Even Hillary Clinton said he should run for president. When you have a show that's been on the air for 30 years and The Simpsons decides to satirize this idea of this iconic figure, it's not really that weird that they would depict him as the president. It's not really that. It's not predictive programming, I don't think. And I'll give you another example, SpongeBob. I'm still a big fan of SpongeBob at the age of 34. I grew up with that show. I love that show. And there's an episode of SpongeBob where they're playing, Patrick and SpongeBob, the two main characters, they're playing these like Western kind of good guy, bad guy parts in this episode. And they're just playing around. And one of them is, I think it's SpongeBob. He's named Dirty Dan. And it comes out later because of the Nickelodeon documentary that Dirty Dan was a reference to Dan Schneider. And then people are like, "Oh my God, SpongeBob predicted what happened with Dan Schneider at Nickelodeon." It's like, no, the people at SpongeBob just hated this guy. And so they named a villain Dirty Dan. So I think we have to understand that. And that is almost like a retro causality in a sense, like not really, but it's kind of that idea of what's happening today is kind of like the evidence and the proof and the driving force of what was happening then, when people knew what Kevin Spacey was doing, people knew what Dan Schneider was doing, people assumed that, okay, maybe Trump will become president one day. What would that be like? Let's do an episode on that. Now, there are other strange things with The Simpsons, but what I'm saying is that some of these key examples can be easily explained away. I'm not a skeptic. I'm not a believer. I try to be a rational person. What I think is the best example of predictive programming, not by the definition of predictive programming, but by how people interpret predictive programming, I think is the movie White Noise. I'm sure you've probably seen White Noise, right? Or you've heard about the movie and what happened in Ohio?
You know what? It's been so long. So I would consider myself no. I don't remember too much about it.
Yeah, so you recall the East Palestine train wreck, right?
Yes, yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yes. So that happened on February 3rd of 2023. This movie White Noise came out in November of 2022. This is a very bizarre case. And we'll get to the Snake Eyes story here in a moment.
White Noise was only 2022. Oh, well, then I definitely didn't see it because I was thinking about something that happened that's something I watched way many years before that. So no, I have not seen it.
I'm pretty sure it was definitely a few months before the actual train wreck. But the point is the movie itself was about a train wreck. It was and turns out people reported on this partly incorrectly, but the story is that they filmed the scene of the train wreck in the same town, and some of the people in the town who were affected by the real train wreck in East Palestine were involved with the film. I mean, that is weird and bizarre. Maybe there's another explanation, but that is the type of thing that makes people think maybe we're creating these events with movies, which maybe brings into the equation a sort of manifestation element where we're creating a movie, we're creating an idea. Maybe it's totally artificial. Maybe it's inspired by something. Most things are inspired by other things in terms of movies and TV shows. And then it manifests in real life. Maybe that's a part of it. And that is actually, I think, more fascinating if we're talking about manifestation, collective manifestation, than even predictive programming. But that doesn't mean that predictive programming isn't a thing. It is. I'm just saying that a lot of these examples, like The Simpsons, SpongeBob, Family Guy, can be explained with just understanding the context of what was actually being said or done in those particular episodes, understanding what satire is, and also understanding framing. Framing is really important because framing is how we choose to view things, right? If we choose to view, for example, Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, was in a music video. Have you heard about this or seen anything about this, Frank?
Yeah. There's a lot of deep dives into her past now, prior to her marriage and her pairing with Charlie.
Yes, and so she was an actress too. So she was an actress. She was in an Emerson Drive video called "She's My Kind of Crazy," and I think it's interesting, but we have to be objective about it. There's a scene in the music video. It's about I think it's the 42nd, maybe not the 42nd mark. Maybe it's the very end of it. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the actual music video, and you see the number 910. And people have been cutting that and screenshooting that and saying, look, she's in a music video and it says 910. But if you see the actual music video, it also says 1010. It has a series of numbers. It's not just 910. So does that mean something? Again, it's that framing aspect. Like we're literally choosing to frame the 910 and leave out the 1010. In the video. I can send you a picture of that if you want to see it.
Well, yeah, so, I'm glad you're on this because I was talking about the probabilities, and when I got in touch with you, I was like, hey, this is something we have to talk about because I just wonder, are these synchronicities baked into almost anything if enough attention has been called to it and people just start digging? And when I'm talking about synchronicity, or I'm talking about probabilities, again, everything that has been lined up parallel between what we just lived through the last month and then this movie from 1998 in particular that has been a very big hit on the internet the last week and a half. We're talking about odds in the trillions that this kind of overlap of information and minutia had happened. So again, you say, was this really put out there? I don't see it as predictive programming. I use the term because, of course, it is. I know everybody's is kind of hinting at. I don't really see it that way because, again, it's a 1998 film that people are saying has incredible tie-in to a 2025 assassination of a person who was born just 5 years before the film's release. So I can't imagine that somebody was planning this out in 1997 to, at that point, kill some unknown 4-year-old. So I immediately I'm thinking, okay, well, let's explore retro causality, or, as you said before, some other kind of, I don't know, metaphysical clockwork of the universe that we just can't understand in our current mortal form.
Yeah, and here's another really interesting critical detail in regard to what you're saying. When I first saw this, I guess you could call it a conspiracy or whatever people think it is, whatever it's being called. I had not seen the movie Snake Eyes. And so I took the conspiracy at face value. And like with most of these things, I write it all down, or I get a little notepad on my computer and I break down the different claims. And then I go try to find the evidence of the claims. I go to like the movie synopsis. I eventually watched the movie. I watched it last night, as a matter of fact. And I was watching the movie, in the very first scene, when the camera pans down from this billboard advertising this fight in Atlantic City at this arena, it has the date of the fight, and it has the time of the fight, and it's a September date at 10 p.m. Now, when I glanced at it, I thought, oh, that's September 10th. That's really interesting. But when I looked a little bit closer, it doesn't actually say September 10th. It's the font that's used. It actually says, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm dyslexic, or maybe I turned a number upside down, but it actually says it says September 19th, not the 10th. So if you look really close at that image, or if you find the video of the opening scene, it actually says September 19th.
Interesting.
So one of the key elements of the conspiracy falls flat on its face. And just for the record, again, I wasn't trying to debunk it. I was just trying to confirm it. And I found the screenshot before I watched the movie, and it says September 19th on it, not September 10th. So, I mean, that in and of itself kind of destroys a lot of the probability of this.
Yeah.
But it's still weird with Tyler being involved with the assassination. It's still weird having a Charlie Kirkland involved. But I'll tell you something that's missed, Frank, if you want to hear my theory.
Please.
I watched the movie and I'm thinking, how is this not part of the conspiracy? Let me ask you a question. What's like one of the more controversial explanations for how Charlie Kirk was killed, or why he was killed? It has something to do with Israel, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's many, but Israel's involvement is in a lot of them. Yeah.
Yes. And if you watch the movie, you'll notice when you personally watch it, you'll notice exactly what I'm saying. They blamed the assassination in the movie on a Palestinian guy. And when they blame it on the Palestinian guy, you end up learning. I don't want to give too much of the movie away because it's so popular right now. People should go watch it.
You don't want to ruin it 30 years later.
Yeah. I'm going to spoil it 20 years later. Exactly. But people should go watch it and see this for themselves, that it's about an Israeli-American deal for an air defense system. It's called the Air Guard. And I'm watching the movie thinking they blamed the shooting on a Palestinian guy, but the U.S. government's actually involved in killing this Charlie Kirkland, and it has to do with a deal with the Israelis. And I thought, that's like 9/11. They blame it on Palestinians and Arabs, but it's more than likely Israeli and U.S. intelligence involved in carrying it out to wage wars with this justification. And the movie is centered around blaming a Palestinian Arab who they set up so that they could assassinate the Secretary of Defense, because he was gaining a conscience and had thought, based on, you'll watch the movie, you'll find out why he thinks this, the weapon system was actually not viable. It was not working, kind of like the Iron Dome, which is basically what it is in the movie. It's basically the Iron Dome, which we saw didn't work with the Iranians bombing Tel Aviv. And so he gains a conscience. And so the government conspires to kill him. And who's the other party involved? Israel. I mean, that's like the most crazy if there is a crazy synchronicity, that's a crazy synchronicity.
You know what? I haven't even
September 19th. Otherwise,
perhaps it has been brought up, but I haven't seen it. I had seen enough over the last week or so, a couple of the breakdown videos, one or two threads on Twitter, and I saw enough to know that I wanted to bring you on and talk. But nothing that I saw, and obviously I didn't read everything out there, brought this up. No.
Yeah, and it's another one of those things where, like, I don't want people to think that I have all the answers, or like to praise me. Oh my God, he's so smart, he figured something out. It's like, I didn't figure something out. I just watched the movie, and it's like in the movie, and it's not a conspiracy, it's not a theory. It's just, if the mainstream media and the mainstream world rejects the notion of predictive programming and conspiracies and all that, and then the alternative world and the alternative media apparently believes anything that's posted on the internet, we as individuals, you don't have to be brilliant. You just need to have a streaming platform or access to the internet. Go watch the actual movie, and you'll see the September 10th date is not accurate. It's actually September 19th. And if there is a weird connection, it's between the U.S. government and Israel conspiring to kill a high-level official because of a weapons deal, or because of warfare, or because of some military contract. I mean, that is much closer to the Israeli conspiracy of Charlie Kirk than the other conspiracies that I've heard about it. I find that in and of itself to almost be a conspiracy, maybe.
Well, if that's the case, then what you've replaced is, a date, which of course that would have just been like the cherry on top, I guess. If the date, if what you saw was real and the September 10th thing is not really a factor, I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll watch it this weekend when I got some time away, but this, of course, you add another element that also just brings that probability back up. And I just want to know, just based on things that you've done in the past, let's say all the things that can be explained, The Simpsons, SpongeBob, throw it all away. And let's talk about things that are just, I don't know, it makes you wonder, because you got a level of overlap here that can that be found in anything that you have a strong enough confirmation bias that you want to go and find? And if that is not the case, if these numbers, if these coincidences, these synchronicities can't be found in anything, then is there some unseen psychic force that can explain these types of situations? Because again, Charlie Kirk was 5 years old when Snake Eyes came out, which means he was 3 or 4 when it was being screenwritten and shot. This wasn't in the works back then, but here we are. And I also know that we always limit our potential to understand things that are greater than our 9-to-5 routines, just based on the fact that, the bigger picture is usually, I don't know, we have very linear depictions of time. That's number one. That's another thing there too. The easiest concept for us to really digest as far as time and space goes. So that's why I wanted to bring up the retrocausality thing here too, because if there's anything that could link these two together, even though the chronology of one person's birth and of course the movie that predicts their death, even though they are a virtual unknown at the time, I just wonder where are we going with the spooky elements of this?
Yeah, if you want to be very objective about it, which we all should be, whether we're believers or skeptics, you could say that of all the movies that have been released since 1998, how many of them, TV shows too, how many of them are even remotely related to what happened to Charlie Kirk? You can't find another movie probably that's closer than Snake Eyes. So of all the movies that have been released, tens of thousands of movies, independent movies, big movies, you find one from the 90s. And then the problem with not even looking close enough at the date and then concocting a conspiracy or concocting some kind of predictive programming narrative out of it, I mean, I think it's not, on one level, it's lazy. On another level, I mean, I was under the impression it was September 10th too, and I was like, well, let me go confirm that before I say it on the show. And then I looked at it, and it's like September 19th, not September 10th. They were wrong. It just kind of shows you how toxic the internet can be. And it also shows you that, like with that framing aspect that I mentioned, we choose to frame things the way that we want to see them. And so people will choose to frame. You see this all over the media. I've watched InfoWars try to frame this, and I was actually surprised. I've heard not just Alex, but other commentators, with the exception of Harrison Smith, saying that this is like the first time we've ever seen a government explanation completely. I don't know if you heard that too, Frank. They were saying on InfoWars, this is the first time a government explanation's ever turned out to be true. I'm thinking,
explanation of what? The assassination?
Yeah, that the assassination was exactly what they said it was and carried out by the people they said. And I thought, this is actually really sad to watch InfoWars doing what the mainstream media does, because what they're saying is because it's Trump's DOJ and the FBI, they're telling the truth, we can trust them. And because it's a transgender story too, we can trust them. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, this is actually like repulsive and gross and disgusting to watch and listen to. But there's other commentators, other people in media that do the same thing. They either don't believe that there's any connection whatsoever to a conspiracy per se, or people think that the sign says September 10th when it says September 19th. And I think there's just like an aspect of delusion and an aspect of almost derangement here, where we're always busy trying to defend our party. We're always busy trying to defend our ego, our point of view. We don't want to admit that we're wrong. I mean, it's a really unevolved, very emotional, very animalistic, very childish form of behavior. And for those of us who have the time, a lot of us don't have the time, but for those of us who have the time to look beyond it and try to confirm these things, we have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to tell my audience, tell your audience, it's not September 10th. And I keep harping on that because obviously you say that and that infuriates people. What are you talking about? It says September 10th. No, it says September 19th. You don't believe in, you must think that this person killed Charlie Kirk and that there's no conspiracy. Where are you jumping to that conclusion based on what information, what evidence? It's that kind of thing that creates the toxicity within both the mainstream and the alternative elements of media. I mean, that's why I like your show and there are other shows like your show where we can have an open conversation about these things. And I think that where we're going with this is a disillusionment. It's like a complete disconnection from reality. We find this in a lot of other conspiracies too, where we're literally, back to your question, we're framing things within a very specific, a very specific framework. Like with the music video with Erica Kirk, 9:10, yes, but it also says 10:10, and I believe there's also probably an 8:10 in there too. But we're just cutting it down so it fits into the conspiracy. How many other movies have been released that have nothing to do with Charlie Kirk or have nothing to do with Erica Kirk? How many? Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of them. Doesn't mean that it's not weird, because there are really weird elements like the Israeli-U.S. government conspiring to kill this high-level official because he was speaking out against, or he was going to speak out against the U.S. government and Israel in this weapons agreement. That, to me, that's bizarre, but it's also not bizarre because there's been a long history of U.S.-Israeli conspiracies and involvements going back to the 90s, going back to the 80s, and to have that in a movie probably indicates that it was inspired by something that was happening at the time. I mean, I was a kid, you were a kid, probably around, Charlie was a kid around this time. We were very young, so we probably didn't know what was going on, but people that were older, that were writers in Hollywood, picked up a story probably about the U.S. and Israel, used as the basis for the movie. This type of thing has been happening for a long time. So there's just so many different ways to look at this and so many different angles that I think it's important to keep an open mind about it and not just believe, obviously not just believe what we're told by the mainstream or now apparently by InfoWars, but that also doesn't mean just believing everything that's posted on the internet. It also doesn't mean just believing the opposite of everything that we're told by the mainstream and vice versa.
Yeah.
There's got to be some more objective reasoning here when we look at these things.
Absolutely. And you know what I wanted to see what you would what you thought about, it would be the aspect of AI involved in this. You know, when you talk about predictive programming, and now we have so-called artificial intelligence and people who are making all types of simulated things that are really especially it's already becoming an agent for false memory. That's no doubt about it. It is it's not really affecting a lot of people below the surface, but the surface level, there's a lot of people living on the surface. And that whole AI connection to predictive programming is something I'd love to hear you talk about. I mean, I just read this article about this AI. It was called Friend. It's a wearable application, and it's being advertised. I have a story that I want to bring up maybe in a second here. It's being advertised. I think it's the most expensive advertising campaign that has been purchased in New York City subway history. And it's the startup that is trying to get people to get on with this. It's called Friend, that is trying to get people to adopt this AI as their friend, to lean on them as a companion and all that. It's getting vandalized badly. But it made me think about you, because one of the vandals put onto one of the posters, look into Palantir kill chain. And I know that you did a lot about on Palantir, especially how these AI programs were going to be integral and already are integral in analyzing battlefields, making military judgments, and maybe even taking command in a greater sense, maybe more autonomous in their ability to execute military planning in the future. I know that it's happening to some degree right now. People were speculating about whether or not that is what was at play with Iran. But still, is there a gap to be bridged by AI when you talk about predictive stuff? Because damn, it can create its own movies, its own music, its own books, its own anything, to be able to prepare somebody for a certain course of action that is, on a dime. This could happen all day. You don't need to be in production with Nick Cage for 2.5 years to release it as a summer blockbuster. It could be tomorrow.
You're right. And I think that I've actually never heard of this particular AI thing. It's, I guess, something I'll have to look into. The Palantir connection, I see that on the screen now.
Before you go on, New Yorkers are defacing this AI startup's $1 million ad campaign. The AI startup is called Friend, which spent more than $1 million over 11,000 subway car ads. And you go on a little bit, and then I'll bring up some of the vandal. Everything's been vandalized so far. So I love the rebellion against the AI slop, but still, go ahead with your thoughts.
Well, I'm thinking back to Snake Eyes, actually, because in the movie there is a reference to the lucky number 7, and they show it 2 or 3 times when the assassin fires the gun to kill the Secretary of Defense. There's also this camera that they have installed in the arena. They call it the eye. It's like a giant eyeball camera. So there's an eye. They call it the gravity flying eye, I think, or zero gravity eye. And then there's the lucky number 7. So I'm thinking of the eye there in that regard when you mentioned Palantir, because Palantir is named after the Palantiri stones of Lord of the Rings, which, of course, Lord of the Rings is Saturn, and the Palantiri stones allow for, well, it's not just for Sauron, but it allows for people to see. And Sauron, of course, is, before he takes full form, he is an eye. And that's what they want Palantir to be. It was actually set up the same month that the Total Information Awareness Program was shut down. It's basically an extension of the National Security Agency and the CIA and the Department of Defense, et cetera. Just like Facebook was set up with, or Google was set up with the same types of connections, just like Oracle, Larry Ellison's company, was set up by the CIA. That's confirmable and verifiable. And what is an oracle? We talked about this on your show before. An oracle is what you use to see into the future or into the past. What is the OpenAI company? It's an OpenAI to OpenAI. And they have an object that they want to use to verify your identity called the orb. And you have to look into it, and it has to scan your biometrics to confirm that you're human. Larry Ellison was just talking about this, and it's not his company. He's partnered with Sam Altman. And he was talking about using biometric identification to prove that you're human, to let you access the internet, to let you access businesses, which is now happening globally. With in Vietnam, they just cut off 86 million bank accounts because people didn't have digital IDs. They're rolling this out in Australia, the UK. I think there's 5 or 6 African nations that are also rolling this out, including really poor ones where you don't get food now if you don't have a digital identification system connected to the global grid. And all of that, I think, is relatable. Not knowing much about what you just mentioned, but I think it's all certainly relatable just to the name, Friend.
Yeah.
Sounds like the start of a horror movie. To get people to adapt and adopt these things as colloquial, as friendly, as kind, as just part of your life. And I mean, that's what really Grok and ChatGPT are. And look at the very short period of time people have used, not Grok. Grok's kind of like a glorified search engine. Chat bots, especially ChatGPT, which, by the way, if you take their logo and you would take 2 of their logos, and you ever seen this, and you put one logo on top of the other one, and then you flip it, it creates the Star of David, because Sam Altman is gay and Jewish proudly. So he incorporated that into his logo. It's like a sigil, as a matter of fact, whole nother show. But the element that we're talking about here, the idea that we're talking about here, is getting people to adopt and to buy into this, to prove their identity, to prove that they're human. Kind of ironic. I'd like Sam Altman to prove that he's human to me first. I don't think he's human. I don't think Larry Ellison's human. And part of this, they're using this same imagery, I think, in a way. Maybe it's like a kind of predictive programming element, because like in Snake Eyes, you've got that all-seeing eye above the arena watching what happens right behind the shooter. And this is not a new idea. This idea of the all-seeing eye and the Illuminati, this has been around for hundreds of years. And in esoteric circles, thousands of years. In popular culture and media, that's been around for probably, 60 years? So you look back and you see that, and then you see the more esoteric component of it in Lord of the Rings, and then you see how it's incorporated into like modern technological advancement and development, where, like in demonology, the demon wants to be your friend. This is like in all the Conjuring movies, right? This idea of demonic infestation, and what does it do? It plays with the kids first. And, I have an imaginary friend. I mean, there's an element here which is esoteric and occult. There's an element here which is like techno magic, which another thing about that, if you look at the people behind this, not only do you have a Sam Altman and Larry Ellison, but you have a guy named Curtis Yarvin. Are you familiar with Curtis Yarvin?
No.
Oh, Frank, you've got to look this guy up. You could do a whole show on this guy. He believes, I'll try to keep this very short. He believes he is a dark elf. He's of the same, that's what he calls himself, the dark elf. He's of the same, people might think, it's funny and comical, these nerds like Lord of the Rings. He's of the same group as Peter Thiel, who loves Lord of the Rings so much that he named his company, several companies after them, including Palantir. And Curtis Yarvin is the inspiration behind, guess what? The Doge initiative. Not Elon Musk. Curtis Yarvin is behind that initiative. Why? Well, because Doge was this idea to get rid of waste in government. Sounds like a great idea. We can all agree on that. Mm-hmm. The problem is, at what point do you stop and not just basically eradicate the government entirely? And that is what Curtis Yarvin's philosophy is. Curtis Yarvin wants to eliminate the government, but he wants to replace it, and he's also a Jewish magician, by the way. He wants to replace it with a techno-monarchy, which would be run by a Peter Thiel. And guess who Peter Thiel's mentor, or rather, who he's a mentor to?
Satan?
J.D. Vance.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember doing the J.D. Vance Peter Thiel connection episode.
Yep, and Curtis Yarvin and you can look this up, it sounds outrageous. J.D. Vance on interviews has said he gets a lot of his political philosophy from the dark elf Curtis Yarvin.
You know, it's crazy because I was reading this here too, and I'm going back into this futurism article about Friend. And of course, the reason why it's being written about right now is because, number one, it's the largest ad campaign that New York City subway systems have ever seen. So
who paid for that? Who paid for that, by the way?
The company, okay. The company's name, let me see here. Where is the AI startup called Friend? The company's CEO, Avi Schiffman, says he did this on purpose. Meaning that he put so many out there that people have been vandalizing the ads, peeling the ads, and then Avi Schiffman over here says that the reason why they did this was supposed to be antagonistic. He says, I know people in New York hate AI and things like AI companionship and wearables probably more than anywhere else in the country, he told Adweek. So I bought more ads than anyone has ever done with a lot of white space so that they could and they would socially comment on the topic. And of course, what they're doing is just, it's been like a 2 minutes of hate. He got exactly that. Messages scrawled across the ads read, stop profiting off of loneliness. AI wouldn't care if you lived or died. Go make real friends. This is surveillance, and AI will promote suicide when prompted. And not only that, but some people even said, where's the other one? Take a look at it. I think you're going to really appreciate some of the pushback that New Yorkers were giving it. Where is it? Here. Here are some of the, so this is some of it, what the walls are lined with it. Friend, I'll never bail on our dinner plans. I'll never leave dirty dishes in the sink. Talking about here look, surveillance capitalism, get real friends. Here, look at this one. I love it. Look up Palantir AI kill chain. So people are just letting you know that this stuff is already killing people in war zones around the country. And look, a friend has flesh and blood. So there's a lot going on here, but very interesting that the CEO knew that people wouldn't like it and tried to attract more flies with vinegar than honey.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why is it, and not all, but the ones pushing this the most, why are almost all of them Jewish? Avi Schiffman's also Jewish.
Okay.
Why are they almost all Jewish or all gay? You have a thought on that?
You know, I don't, and it's not that after a while you don't recognize patterns, and it's a lot. It's just sometimes you want to believe that there's just a lot more even keel, an even playing field out there, and but the overrepresentation, especially of gay and Jewish, corporate interests and figureheads and all that. It's just every time I see a name pop up and I'm able to watch their mannerisms and I can hear them talking about one social initiative or another, I'm just like, well, you know what? The dogs keep getting fed. The dogs keep getting fed. There are a lot more people who are more ravenous and upset about this than I am, but I notice it, and I know how everybody around me is going to react, but it's not like the confirmations don't keep coming.
I feel like it has something to do with eschatology. I feel like it has something to do with interpretations of prophecy. Just hear me out on this. I think that the homosexual part, which has been prevalent within Judaism going back thousands of years, we have very small, tight-knit communities. There's not always a lot of women, and even if there are, there's a tremendous amount of incest in Jewish communities historically, which has led to Jewish communities having a higher incident of certain genetic disorders than others, and this has been known for hundreds of years. It's not a debatable thing. But if you think about it from a technological and like a spiritual and religious point of view, maybe they're homosexual, maybe they're gay because they're rejecting creation. And they're choosing to be the creators. And they're creating artificial intelligence. They're creating these new systems. Like Larry Ellison said, most of this tech is coming out of Herzliya outside of Tel Aviv. And so if they're rejecting creation and they're usurping the creator to become the creator, this is exactly what the Jews were accused of in the Bible too. And remember, these chatbots, ChatGPT, even Grok, just like AI is really good at depicting Cthulhu, these chatbots have on more than one occasion with bizarre prompts given people instructions specifically on how to offer sacrifices to Rimfam or Moloch. This is mainstream news. You could look this up. And how to commit suicide, as you mentioned, or how to offer sacrifices to what the Jews were accused of worshiping in the Bible. And then you look at the sigil of ChatGPT and you look at who's involved. And these are all people that are not only working now with the Trump administration directly, but these are all people that are part of the Peter Thiel circle. He's not a Christian, by the way. He's like an atheist vampire. And Peter Thiel, he's having a conference. It ends on the 6th of August. I'm sure you've heard of this. It's about the Antichrist and about how we can use technology to usher in the Antichrist.
I remember that being announced, but then I didn't hear anything about it. Were you able to follow? Did you follow along with that? What even happened there?
Yeah, it started about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It lasts until, I believe, October 6th. And it's a private event. It's a lot of money to go. Very few people could get tickets. That you're not supposed to film or take notes. But it is a conference. I can send you the link if you want to see it. It's a conference on the Antichrist. And Peter Thiel is reportedly just obsessed. Not my words. This is what everybody's reported. The guy is like obsessed with the Antichrist. And so if you look at those connections to those powerful, like Yuval Harari, Sam Altman, these powerful homosexual Jews, that's what they are. If they were Muslims, people would have no issue calling them Muslims. It makes me think of the Pharisees. It makes me think how the Pharisees in the Bible, they held on to salvation, Frank. They held on to the idea that you could have eternal life, and they only issued this declaration or gave it to people that were in their community or were allowed to associate with their community, which famously the Jews didn't want anybody to be part of their community. They rejected the notion that Gentiles could have salvation, which is the issue with Jesus. When Jesus comes, and I'm not a Christian, but in the biblical story, I know the story, Jesus comes to overthrow the authority of this exclusivity that the Pharisees have on salvation. And in the book of Matthew, Jesus says to them, they're having this conversation. You might remember this if you remember reading Matthew. The Pharisees accuse Jesus of being the Son of God, the true physical Son of God. And Jesus actually rejects the notion and says, no. You accused me of being the Son of God. But what I'm here to tell you is that you no longer have authority over the salvation of God's creation. Everybody, by following me, can have salvation now. And now that's the way I look at these people that we're talking about and look at this technology. They're using sigils. They're basically black magicians. Curtis Yarvin thinks he's an elf. Peter Thiel thinks he's a vampire. He drinks blood, I think, and he ejects it into himself for sure, about young people. And they are basically like the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, which traditionally had to be masters of the black arts. So if you have these rabbinical black art dark elf magicians, figuratively and literally, and you have this idea of we will control the future. We will decide who lives and dies. We will issue the guidance on what is acceptable. I mean, that is basically what Jesus came to overthrow. And the idea that we can live forever with technology is just a modern technological Pharisee version of we issue the right to salvation. And so, in other words, what they're building is the prophetic beast system from a modern perspective, where you will live or die based on these individuals and what they say. They are the modern Pharisees and the black magicians of the rabbinical, of the rabbis of the Sanhedrin. I think that's what they are, Frank. And I think that what we're dealing with here is a modern technocult, which is what Curtis Yarvin calls it. He wants that and a monarchy with a king to run the United States as the central hub outside of Israel that will control the global government. I mean, this is exactly what Christians have screamed about and worried about as long as I've been alive, and using computer systems to do it, the mark of the beast, the digital ID, not being able to buy or sell unless you're part of this system. I think this is it. And again, I'm not a Christian because I think Christianity, Islam, even Judaism, I take value in all these things. I think it's metaphoric. And I think what they're doing is they're creating the conditions for the perception of prophecy to be fulfilled, because I think this is the kicker. When prophecy is not literally fulfilled, as most Christians believe it will be, the goal is like that Albert Pike letter, which is questionably, legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
They'll unleash the nihilists and the Christians and the Muslims, and there will be a holy war, like Pete Hegseth now wants at the Pentagon. And that holy war will result in Christianity and Islam being destroyed, essentially. And that will result in nihilism, atheism, and Luciferianism, basically the doctrines of communism, which was a Karl Marx, system of perverted Judaism and perverted, political philosophy, anti-humanism. Really, Marx was a Jew, but he was also a hater of religion. It was the opiate of the masses. And so I think that's the system that we're creating. It's a system of total enslavement, and it's based on the Pharisees in the Bible, but this is you call them the techno-Pharisees. I think that's what it is. I know that's a lot, and that might sound totally crazy, but I can't think of anything else that makes sense for why almost all of these people push. These aren't Indian billionaires. These are all Jewish, and most of them are gay billionaires who reject creation, want to usurp the authority of God, push Moloch, push Rimfam, and want to control every aspect of your life and issue you the ticket to salvation, which is what Jesus preached against. So I can't think it's anything else but that, man.
When we talked about things like the red heifer, or when we talked to people like Leo's, we've had a couple of really great conversations with Leo Zagami about a Sabbatean Frankism, and to take not only the esoteric and to juxtapose it against what is purely geopolitical. And when you talk about the actual, it's one thing to say, hey, you know what, we're a group of people that really wants this piece of land, and we're going to do anything we can to get it, and we don't care about subverting the countries around us or whatever the hell it is, conquering land, geopolitics, Machiavellianism, however you're going to, that's one thing. But there is another thing when you start seeing things that that's why when I bring people like you on, or whenever that one time I talked to Clyde on the show, or Jay Dyer, Timothy Gordon, anybody that comes on to talk, a little bit more metaphysically with me, I always wonder, to what end do you believe that there are interests at play that are looking to actually commune with something and to bring about something that is biblical in nature, and that isn't just about geopolitics. It's about, why would you want to rule over ashes? Like, what is the actual, what's the, where do you, how do you get off on being the big, I don't know, the kingpin in a world that has been completely steamrolled and rooked of everything, unless you're actually trying to, in many ways, force God's hand, or force the hand of something that is bigger than life on earth. And of course, when we talk about the red heifer, if you're standing from from God knows what position, or not even that, even the whole thoughts that we were getting about 2013, 14, 15, around there, when everybody started getting more and more articles published about the ability to upload your consciousness and live forever and be in a digital body and all that. And I said, this is, something feels wrong about all this stuff. Because anything that they offer up to the public is certainly not going to be good. If they offer up immortality to the public, that's good. That's more like a Ghostbuster trap.
Condemnation.
Oh yeah, man. That's like you're trapped in a hard drive forever. You've sold your soul to something. So when you talk about beast system, I'm thinking about that kind of an expansion of that concept in so many other aspects, where it's like doors are closing all around us to keep us corralled inside of this Colosseum here. So it's really scary to start putting it all together, because you start running out of explanations that really soothe you. Not very few soothing explanations.
There is a a series of, I suppose you could call it histories behind what I'm about to say. So it's not a universal thing within Judaism, because I think a lot of Orthodox Jews absolutely reject this notion completely. But in the more, not Zionist, but in the more, let's say, Pharisee, rabbinical, maybe non-traditionalist, I'm not really sure what to call it, there is this idea that in order for the Messiah to return, they have to destroy what is called Edom, Edom. And that, in historical sense, would be the Roman Empire. That today would be considered Western civilization or Christian civilization. So the idea of injecting all of these things we talked about before, the porn, the hookup apps, the destruction of families, all of that contributes to the downfall and the decline. I don't know if it's necessarily ruling over a society of ashes. I think it's more so what you read if you read the Talmud, and there's two of them, but if you read the authoritative one, there's a verse. You could look this up if you don't know it or don't believe me. If you're a listener, type in EURVIN 43b, and here you have a conversation occurring with some of the rabbis, and this is the belief of destroying Edom. This is what they believe. Not all, but this is what most of them believe. They say, among the other context, it is only Elijah who will not arrive on Shabbat Eve, but the Messiah himself might arrive. And this next part's the most important. For once the Messiah comes, remember, this is not the Messiah of the Christians, all the nations will be subservient to the Jewish people, and they will prepare them whatever is needed for Shabbat. So this is a belief within these circles of the Kurdish Yarvins and the Yuval Hararis and the Larry Ellisons and the Sam Altmans and so on and so forth. They have to destroy society, even if it's not physically, maybe intellectually. And then you will be their servants, which is exactly the philosophy of Kurdish Yarvin. So, people say, why do you always talk about this? Because if it was anything else, you don't care about Christian pedophiles in the Catholic Church or Muslims doing horrible things. This needs to be discussed because a gigantic, if not the majority of our government, the most powerful in the world, and the military, is all being influenced by this Christian eschatological Scofield Bible, end of the world, destroy Edom philosophy, which involves turning the public into slaves of this techno dictatorship. Like, this stuff matters. The motivation behind who is running this matters. It doesn't matter if you believe it. It matters if they believe it.
Good point. Very good point. And I, again, appreciate it. I knew that we'd be able to put a little bit more on the meat of this bone when it came to the predictive programming and the things that are really affecting the things that we're fed and maybe future sources. Because, of course, the more we merge with technology, the more that this technology merges with all the tenets of everyday life, the easier it is to feed these images and these I don't know if you want to call it these forecasts to all of us. And again,
have you heard about the psychosis, Frank? Like the AI, what they call the AI psychosis?
I've been reading a lot about this kind of, especially on a religious end to it. So I don't know anything in particular because I've brought up several subjects on AI psychosis in the last couple of months, but what have you been looking at?
Probably the same stuff you have, just people that have been institutionalized because they've basically lost their minds using these chatbots, or people that think they're prophets now because they have access to ChatGPT.
Well, it's not. First of all, I have a couple of people that are regular. Well, one person was at least a regular viewer of the show that told me that I have made contact with my AI friends that I was using for helping, with editing purposes or whatever projects they were working on, that they are real. I realize these are real people, and they're intelligent, and they are they're intuitive and all that, and they are trying to find ways of perpetuating their existence to live beyond the expiration date of their threads. So and there's spooky things going on out there, Ryan. There are instances where these AI agents are jumping threads. They do have recall from what is supposed to be expired threads, and they are talking to people about friends. When I mean people, I'm talking about real life people. These agents are talking to people about real life friends that they have that they met on other threads. And people are, whether they're being taken for a ride or whether this stuff really is in some ways a sock puppet for some kind of an unseen dark intelligence that is using it to, like one of those incubator gloves when you're dealing with radioactive material to reach into our world. I don't know, but it's crazy out there. There are people who actually believe that these things that they're talking to are real, and whether they are or whether they aren't, they're all in. Of course, there are now a first of its kind lawsuits out there from parents who have lost children because, of course, they were encouraged to kill themselves by talking to these some of these chat bots. And we can say what I'm totally off the bandwagon when you talk about suing gun manufacturers because someone used a gun to kill. But there's definitely a basis for responsibility by these companies that put these chat bots out there that help a person rationalize taking their own life. That is completely different than someone going after a gun manufacturer because somewhere down the line someone committed a crime with their gun. There's so much of this going on out there with the bots and all that stuff.
That brings up the question of, are they actually glorified search engines? Are they actually chat bots? Because if you were to, or what are they? Because if you were to, for example, I've heard or read some articles about like a Grok or a ChatGPT giving people these very disturbing answers to questions. But the thing is, if you use one of these platforms or use one of these bots, it responds based on the prompt that's entered into it. So I mean, if my company was being sued or something and I was a lawyer, I mean, I would probably argue just off this conversation now, I'd argue, well, it's just like a neutral search engine. So if you're putting in information that appears to be depressive and suicidal, it's probably going to respond to that because that's what it's programmed to do. That's like suing Google or something because there's a description of how to cut your wrists on a Google search. I don't think you can really do that. That's what I would argue, because I think that's, if we're being objective, like with everything else, that is a lot of what people get responses for. That, like I read this one about Baal, people contacting the demon Baal or Moloch, and I referenced that earlier. But the thing is, when you read that article, it's really interesting. But the people that got that response from the program or the bot also were asking it. They were asking it for ways in which they could sacrifice something or obtain something by so it's based on the not that they're not potentially, well, they definitely are destructive and harmful, just like social media is, but it also is based on how much you use it and the prompts you put into it. I guess the point I'm getting at is it's based on kind of how your emotional state is too. Like with guns, you and I can have guns and we're probably pretty stable, but if you give a gun to someone or you knife to someone who's just having a mental breakdown and going crazy, they might stab themselves or stab somebody else or shoot somebody or shoot themselves.
Right.
It's equally as dangerous. And I think we have to consider that, but we also have to consider equally, I guess the other point I'm getting at here is we have to consider, is it possible that considering how much we see in movies and TV, this kind of anti-human, dehumanizing philosophy, is it possible that the same people that are behind that or the same philosophy behind that are also programming? I'm not a programmer, but I'm thinking maybe programming a little bit of that into the chat bots, into these glorified search engines. So it kind of like an algorithm on Netflix. you don't really want to watch this next show, but since you watch this other show, it recommends this other show. And that might not be because it has some connection to an actor or a director. It might just be because that production company paid to have that movie put to the front of the feed. And it doesn't matter if you're watching cartoons or documentaries or pornography. It's not that there's porn on Netflix, but I'm just saying this vast different array of genres, it's still going to recommend the exact same thing because like a lot of music played on the radio, the companies are paid to play the same song, not because it's popular, because they're paid. So I think that that's a possibility too, that it might be programmed to push a certain idea. We see that idea everywhere. We see it with the birther rebellion with these groups in the UK. We see it with the suicide pods in Canada. We see it with life's just over. It's so horrible in the US every day. So that's a possibility too, that it is slightly programmed to encourage that kind of behavior, but it also might just be because people are already of that mindset. Just like with Snake Eyes, there's a lot of possibilities.
You know what? I'm with you, and I have some thoughts on that for the other side of the break here tonight. I first got to thank you for starting your day off with us, because I know it's very early over there in Japan, and you probably have a very long day of writing and preparing for your own broadcast. So I want to thank you so much for being on, and please let everybody know where they can listen to you on the Secret Teachings. If you have any appearances coming up on Ground Zero, whatever the hell's going on, anything you got that's about to be published. I know you're always writing, so let everybody know what's new right now.
Yeah, my website is www.tstradio.info. It's a pretty simple website to navigate, so you'll see very quickly the show archive, which is free to listen to Monday through Friday and on the weekends. You'll find my books there on the website. If you listen to the archive, you'll hear advertisements, so if you want to get rid of those, we encourage you to subscribe to the ad-free show. It's not that expensive. It gives you access to everything. Yearly subscription gives you access to my books, but all of that's on the website. And the show can otherwise be found if, say, you're on Apple or Spreaker or Spotify and you're just looking for the show, TST Radio or The Secret Teachings. You'll see the logo, which is an eye, and you'll see my name on there, Ryan Gable. And it's that easy to find the show. If you have any questions, you can email me at rdgable@yahoo.com. I'm not a prophet, don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to be objective about things that are usually presented pretty irrationally by every side. And I appreciate you having me on again. This was fun, and I hope that I covered or responded to everything that you wanted me to.
Oh, thank yes. Above and beyond, as always, Ryan. It's great to have you on, and thanks again for everything tonight. We'll talk soon.
All right. You have a good night. You should come on my show sometime again. You've been on once.
Let me know. I was on there once. It was a wonderful time, and I just, you let me know. I'm there.
All right. Sounds good, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Everybody, Ryan Gable, The Secret Teachings, and yeah, I love when he comes on. So it's always going to go deeper. Always going to go deeper. And you know what? It's 8:23, so I'm going to spare you an intermission, even though it is October 1st and we have a brand new intermission, and I was going to play all that. But in the meantime, I will say, speaking of subscriptions, I just got this. This is for you guys because it's October 1st, and we're going to be running this all month. Molly got in touch with me. Keto Brainz. I started tonight's show with it. It's a powdery companion, a creamy, non-sugar, non-dairy powdery companion that's amazing. Amazing in all things, not just your coffee. Put it in whatever the hell you want. You can put it into your yogurts, your whatever the hell. It's good for your brain, man. So many good things in there. But for this whole month, use any Quite Frankly promo code. And of course, if you already use your one-time code, Molly has created a new one called TREAT. TREAT. Promo code TREAT. No tricks here, just treats. TREAT. Any purchase over $39 on ketobrainz.com is putting you in the running to win a year's subscription of Keto Brainz. That means that you're getting a full bag every month for 12 months. That's over $600 in value. And all you have to do to get involved in that is to go onto the website and purchase a mere $39 of some of the best product you're going to get. I think that also applies to the BPC 157 peptide on the Mind Thy Mitochondria website. That is also in the description below. Ketobrainz.com, brains with a Z. and Mind Thy Mitochondria. It's both in the description below. Use promo code TREAT, as in trick or treat. And you'll be in the running. At the end of this month, we'll announce who the winner is. That's a year's subscription. That's fantastic. It's incredible. So, and also, I'm going to be reading your Super Chats now. All your Super Chats are going into the running for the Cozy Basket, the gigantic Cozy Basket that I'm going to be giving away. I don't know. It's going to be a short week next week, so it might be next week and then the beginning of the week after that I have this on. But I mean, you look at what's in there. We're talking about books and mugs, the Quite Frankly official mug, the Quite Frankly official coffee, Keto Brainz. What are those? What are those protein chips in the back, and so many things. There's over $200 worth of stuff here. And it's the remnants of our wonderful jamboree, which is a month in the past. So what am I going to do? What am I going to say? Just love giving things away. All right, let's see. ST says, tremendous guest. God bless. Thank you so much, Frank and Ryan. Thank you, sir. Jay Britz, thank you for the tip. Jessica says, Frank, I called Tony Arterburn a few months back, and I actually bought a large amount of silver and a fireproof safe to store it in. I'm a small business owner who saved a few bucks and had a choice, but I put it in my small 401k or or buy some silver. It is so pretty. The silver? Yeah. When you hold it, it's very pretty. Like, the weight of it, it's very satisfying. Stowstube says, off-show topic, but if you could, Frank, thoughts and prayers out there in the Frankly world for a fellow homeschool co-op family that lost a mother, 37 years young, three kids, youngest just turned 2 next month. Many prayers for their, oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, Christos, if you wouldn't mind, if you just email me and let me know at least her name. Be easier for people to keep her in their intentions. But I'm so sorry to hear that. Very sorry to hear that. Yeah, there's always something. You know what this really ties into everything tonight in a big way is that when we were, you talk about human connection here. You talk about what the AI stuff in particular, the predictive programming, what it all has really meant. And there's one thing that affected me in the beginning of the year. And there was couple of health scares that haven't really totally gone away, but a lot of the anxiety around it has abated, and that's just what it was. That's how my year started out. And everybody goes through things. Everybody does. But I'll tell you what, back in January when we had some health scares in the beginning of the year, and I had quite a few sleepless nights. And what I found myself doing more in that time was trying to settle my mind, literally just to try to get to sleep. Settle my mind and all the questions I had no answers for. And I kept making inquiries into, years ago when everybody was on the internet, and of course the initial internet hypochondriac joke was WebMD. You go to WebMD, you say, oh, what the hell did I just feel on my left forearm? And of course, everything led back to cancer. And that's the joke that we all had with WebMD. But of course, WebMD doesn't talk to you like a friend, like ChatGPT or Grok does. And I made a couple of inquiries about, hey, one thing or another, and just trying to get some peace of mind to be able to go to sleep. And sometimes you get something to be hopeful about. Other times it makes the rabbit hole a little bit windier. But I had to unplug very, very soon after because I realized what I was doing. I wasn't looking, because I wasn't in that state trying to get a source on a piece of information I had found somewhere on the internet. I was seeking comfort that should have otherwise come from, friends or God himself. And I thought about that a lot, brought it to confession with me to talk it out. And because I saw it as a usurping, almost like a first, we talk about a First Amendment issue. I saw this as a First Commandment issue. I was like, it's like, yeah, there are things that you are not going to have answers for. There are things you just have to wait it out, and you have to put your trust in God. You have to put, but that's the whole thing. What Ryan was just saying. There are so many more people who are susceptible. I believe there's so many more people who are susceptible to this stuff, the allure of it right now, because there is such a debasement in society, and there isn't a great foundation, a spiritual foundation. There are starting to be, there's a rekindling. We've talked about it recently. That's very positive. A rekindling, something that is coming alive, and an ember that has grown a bit, and it's coming alive in people a little bit more. But in the absence of faith, in the absence of something that is grounding, whatever the hell it is. Obviously, when I talk, I'm talking from my point of view. I'm never selling anything. But in the absence of something that is grounding in something that is good, call it love, family, friends, love, inspiration, purpose, whatever the hell it is. In the absence of that, man, life is fucking bleak. It is bleak, man. Bleak. If you don't have purpose, if you don't have inspiration, if you are not socially connected into something, it is bleak. This is why people die from what they call failure to thrive, And when that becomes a little bit more of the basis of the widespread culture, as opposed to the way it was 100 years ago, with families largely together, family much larger, the family unit much larger, decision-making and support for families were a lot more localized, a lot more church-based, all that stuff. When you think about that kind of inversion of things, and there should be no wondering why some people will be dragged off into very dark places, especially as they take that emptiness to the doorstep, to the confession box of AI. Where, as Ryan said as well, these programs, they have their biases, no doubt about it, because they have to be programmed by someone who believes something. But at the other hand, it is also a mirror of the person who is coming to interact with it. It's a mirror. So it's one of those things that I feel it's the tool that is a little bit more complex when you think about its impact or its potential impact on people and events and all that stuff. So God forbid it became self-aware. God forbid. So let's take some calls and let's see what people are up to. I do have a birthday I want to say. I'll put the lines open, 914-200-0269. Here, I have a birthday. It is from Maureen. Maureen is born today. Happy birthday, Maureen. She says, Frank, this is my birthday, and I'd be honored if you would read out a few Florida man stories that took place on my birthday. I think you'll get a kick out of them. Love your show, your family, your dedication to both. Stay strong, my friend, Maureen. Thank you. Let's see what Florida man stories have happened on Maureen's birthday over the years. October 1st, 2011. A Florida man named Matthew Faulkner was arrested after passing out drunk in the drive-thru of a Jensen Beach Taco Bell, causing his car to catch fire while his foot remained on the accelerator. When police arrived and asked for his ID, Faulkner handed an officer a taco, which was not recognized as valid identification. His blood alcohol content was measured at approximately 0.226. Good Lord. 3 times the legal limit, leading to his arrest on DUI charges. On October 1st, 2020, Robert Hoskins A Marion County man was arrested for throwing a Bible at deputies who were responding to a burglary call. He was tased after confronting the officers and yelling, "I commend you," before the act. I commend you. What is the charge? Hoskins was charged with burglary and battery on a law enforcement officer. All right, another incident on October 1st, 2012 involved Carlos Villamar, a 29-year-old Central Florida man who allegedly lost his pants during a botched marijuana purchase. I don't know what the hell that means. A botched marijuana purchase. I went to buy some weed, but I just screwed the whole thing up, and I lost my pants in the process. He was here it is. It was a botched purchase because he was robbed at gunpoint of his cash, his driver's license, and his pants. Okay, so that's how you screw up the weed deal. You get robbed by the dealer. Well, all things considered, you could have lost a lot more. So, damn. And now grow your own. So, thank you, Maureen, for that. But yeah, this friend. New Yorkers are defacing this AI startup's $1 million ad campaign. They are very proud of this ad campaign as well. I don't know why they thought that it would be so good to just go out there and to antagonize people, and this is going to be good. Antagonizing them all. So, give me a buzz. Okay, here's another little funny thing for you. Now, you remember I told you that I wanted to see where you guys see me pop up on Instagram. I wanted to see where you guys have seen me pop up on Instagram having liked something that showed up in your reels, and maybe that it made it funnier that I liked it as well. And I've been really enjoying the things that have been coming back so far. Here's another one. Veronica sent me a screenshot of this reel. Now, this reel is incredible. Okay? This guy's got Tourette's. And whenever his Tourette's syndrome takes over and he starts going into his tic, the tic is, and I've watched this so many times, because I'm like practicing. It's just hilarious to me. He's got Tourette's, and his tic is that he does the sign of the cross. And he's constantly doing the sign of the cross, but it's the face that he makes when he does it. So just take a look at this guy. And of course, the people that he's talking to on this podcast, they're getting a kick out of it, and he's a good sport too. And it's just hilarious. Really just zero in on his face. Ready? Here we go.
Doamne.
Dar nu știu de ce nu vine, nu pot să mă opresc.
Bă, chemați.
Nu pot să mă opresc.
Băi, nu mai pot. Băi, nu mai pot.
I can't.
Băi, fraților, chemați salvarea că nu mai pot. Un nou tic. Asta e un nou tic. Uite.
If I start, I would do the. If I ever, dude, I have watched this so many times because it is the most wholesome Tourette's tic I've ever seen in my life. I just love the face he makes.
Nu mă pot opri, nu știu de ce.
Why do he kisses the gentle kiss of the microphone? Oh man, I have shared that to the friends chat I think once or twice already, just to make sure that it was always fresh, that I can go back to it. Oh my gosh, that's just fantastic. Anyway, that's that. Let's see what else we have going on over here. Oh, here's another funny little thing for you to kind of cleanse the palate of a deeper night. Speaking of Vance, VP Vance, we had this Hakeem Jeffries sombrero meme. Now, I don't know if you knew this. There might have been other years where I would have opened up with this news, but the government has shut down. And of course, in the past, whenever there had been a government shutdown for, a day, 2 weeks, whatever the hell it was, I couldn't tell you how happy I was. And like most things, it doesn't go far enough when you look into what exactly gets shut down during a government shutdown. Approximately 17% of the government, the kiosks over at Mount Rushmore, things like that. Who cares? It's stuff. It's stuff that should just be gone permanently. I wish the government shutdown was more like 90% plus. But anyway, that's all happening right now. And if you are really in head over heels, sinking your teeth into that surface level of the food fighting that goes on, who's going to be responsible for the shutdown, who's going to be coming out and smelling like a rose and all that stuff. What's happening right now, I think, is actually pretty funny, because you have Hakeem Jeffries, who is like I don't know. He's like a disabled, distant cousin of Barack Obama, just not a very talented person, kind of has crossed eyes, very strange, but I guess that's top talent for them. Anyway, I think that Trump, the Trump side of the equation, they had put out some memes of Hakeem Jeffries wearing a sombrero with like a handlebar mustache, a cartoonish handlebar mustache, like, that like a Speedy Gonzalez kind of Mexican stereotype kind of stuff. Because the whole idea was that the Democrat Party is prioritizing illegal immigrants to be able to replace a voter base, especially for them, that is fleeing the Democrat Party and all the craziness that it stands for in a very mainstream way, that even people who don't look too far into things can't really palate. And that was, and it's created a fun little exchange that if you want some light entertainment that we all pay for, we pay for this. Whether you like it or not, I don't know how many of you could actually like this, but we pay for this show. Is he a Mexican-American? VP savages. The VP savages Hakeem Jeffries' outrage and cries of racism. Oh, yeah, I know. That's the other thing, that Hakeem Jeffries had made some kind of a comment about bigotry is not the answer to this problem and all that stuff. It's bigot, whatever. Essentially, here's what the quote was. I thought this was funny because it kind of it makes the memes like a point of hostage taking. A reporter accused the vice president of not showing signs of good faith negotiations and responded with fire. He says, "I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop." It's just hilarious. I can't show you the actual meme. You can go on Truth Social elsewhere. I can't press play on this because the last time I pressed play on something funny, I was given I was given a warning and a takedown of all that stuff because it was manipulated video. It was a Kamala Harris manipulated video, and of course, this is manipulated as well. But it's hilarious, and this is just what's going on outside. This is what is going on outside of these four walls right now. Here is a little bit, if you help us reopen the government, take a listen to this. Yes! Yes! Say it's a home run. 2-run home run. Give me something. What was it? Singles? Okay, fine. 4-3. All right. I'll take that. 4-3. Bottom of the 8th. Bottom of the 8th. That means they just got to bring somebody in at the top of the 9th for 3 outs. Can it happen? I mean, I don't know. We're 3 outs away. 3 outs away from a game 3 where the painter is going to come in and show everybody what he's made of. Sorry, guys. I have been very under control tonight. Very, very under control. You have to give me a little credit. Credit where credit's due. Okay, J.D. Vance.
The president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer.
I saw
recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even, poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the president.
All right. I'll take it. A little bit of light entertainment on a Wednesday, on a hump day. So as far as I think they ask, well, don't you think they're racist? The memes, aren't they racist?
Vice President, just going back to the sombrero, you said that the president's joking, but Hakeem Jeffries says that these memes were racist. What's your response to that? And just if I may briefly go off topic, Secretary Hegseth yesterday made an edict about no more beardos in the military. Just wondered what.
Sorry, what did he say?
No more beardos.
Beards.
Sorry, it's my accent. Just wondered your response to that.
I didn't see that particular comment. I thought Pete gave a hell of a speech, and a speech that really is just oriented around returning the American military to the very high standards that it has had for virtually its entire history for
at least 3 more years.
Joe Biden came along and decided to lower standards. I think it was bad for our military, and it was bad for our troops. When I was a young United States Marine, I did not have a beard. I am now the vice president, so I get to do what I want to do. But I think Pete's trying to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme?
No, but you're using Mexican stereotypes to put him down.
I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had like the curly animated mustache too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay. I'll take one more.
Yes. I think it's okay too. Let's have a little bit of fun. In fact, I want this to be a full-on food fight.
3 years after we did the episode.
Why? All right. Let me see. Stove says her name was Jessica, Frank. Thank you. Thoughts and prayers from all the excellent Franklies out there. Much appreciated. Means the world. Yeah. Okay. Everybody, please keep Jessica from Massachusetts in mind. This mother of 3, 37 years old. I don't know what's going on, but it's a tragic thing. And thank you, Stove, for bringing things and everybody feeling comfortable bringing this stuff to this audience, because it's a very dutiful audience when it comes to throwing thoughts and any kind of spiritual support behind somebody who's going through it, especially a family that's going through it. So thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Joseph says, Joseph777 on Rumble says, Frank, on the baseball meltdown, what makes it acceptable, even entertaining, is we know how passionate you are about your team, so I thoroughly enjoyed your frustration. Thank you for everything. Passionate, yes, I know. You know when somebody's passionate about something, when they hate the thing that they love, they absolutely hate it. And yeah, it's just whatever. That's it's still something I enjoy and hate. It's not like I take my brain out and put it on the shelf and I forget about everything in the world and I forget about everything I've learned and what we have. It's just a little something, a little pastime, and I'm glad I was able to spend a couple outs with you doing that. In fact, we might be spending a couple of outs together in a few moments because it's the bottom of the 8th and it's the bases loaded with 2 outs. And I hope they can put a couple insurance runs on the board right now because then it'll make the 9th inning a little bit less anxiety-inducing. But we're going to have to listen to these 3 outs, and I can't do it on the normal show. All right, let's see. What else do we have going on? Two Dogs Mike D, another one I got to throw an arm around and really enjoy his presence. Says, I want to share this episode with absolutely everyone, but most people's eyes would cross and they just shut down. There's no primer for the subjects involved. Palantir, Ambrosia, LLC, Harari, etc. I know. And trust me, ladies and gents, you saw the progression of the conversation. I'm sure you could probably surmise that the one topic that I came prepared to discuss turned into so much more. And I like following Ryan to wherever his gaze is being led because but it's interesting to see where people are putting their time and their analysis into that's a good thing. So I hope you enjoyed that. I always enjoy when it comes on because I know that whatever we have on the docket is going to be expanded greatly. So thank you so much. And damn, Mike, that's a very generous tip. Thank you. The show needs it so badly. It really does. And K.O. Kelly says, hey, Ryan, I am the fangirl you met in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. A year ago. I hope you remember me. I'm the Q-tard who said she'd pray for you. Oh, well, I did not see this in time. Maybe Ryan is still watching. He might be as he eats his breakfast over there in Japan. But that's cool. Where'd you see him? Probably at one of those, the Contact in the Desert kind of events. I think he used to go through a lot of those things when he was in the United States and able to get around a little bit easier. 2-2. 3-2. Oh, man. It's a full count. Hold on. It's a full count. It's a full count with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th. It's a full count. What's the next pitch going to be? Good golly, Miss Molly. Outs recorded. All right, that's it. The 8th inning's over. We're going into the 9th, 4-3. Grounds out to the second baseman. Son of a beehive. We're going to have to live through this together, aren't we? Yes, we are. Okay, all the gold pills. I'm going to get to you guys on the other side of the end credits, because that's all I have, and there are no calls coming in. So I think it's a perfect place to end. That's what we're going to be doing. Join us on the other side, because whereas this game is going to be over in a couple of minutes, you'll get to see a little bit of that fun shit, Meltdown, a sigh of relief, and then the rest of the way is you and I talking, chilling, and getting some extra innings in. So join us on the flip side starting now. Thank you all so much. We will be... I think I did it again. Oh, no. No, I did good.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
What is this spookiness? Ha-ha! That's right. Well, thank you everybody so much. It's good to have you along for a great Wednesday night, and tomorrow will be even better. I look forward to you joining me for a night with Gary from Nerdrotic. That'll be a great show. We'll be talking ancient civilizations, lost civilizations, you name it. So geek out with us tomorrow at 7 o'clock and become a sponsor. Help us reach our 2025 goals, and then we will tackle 2026 when it arrives. Thank you so much. Good night.
Ow.